Folks, this is Tom Opry, your host to the podcast where we ask the tough questions regarding man's impact on the world's wildlife. Raw and unfiltered, we strive to help you fully understand the real issues at hand. Our goal, ensuring the world's wildlife and wildlife habitat exists forever. Stay tuned for another edition of Shepherds of the Wild.
Okay. So Donna, why don't you give me your perspective on the family history? How long you've been here? What it was like growing up here? And, give me an idea where we are, the land, and what you guys do here.
All right. Growing up was a remarkable childhood. I mean, we actually lived in Butte, came here on the weekends, and they were so fun. I mean, I can remember as a little girl just running through the fields, climbing the mountains, never being afraid, just getting out there and doing it. And we played horseback on hide and seek on horseback and just explored. I always loved exploring the mountains, exploring the wildlife. And as I grew up, of course, I turned into a teenager and didn't think the place was too cool anymore. And then as an adult, when I moved back, I realized the heritage and the importance of the land and how hard the family worked to keep the land and take care of not only the land, but take care of our surroundings and be a good neighbor. I mean, when you live where we live, 911 doesn't do you a whole heck of a lot of good. You need your neighbor on speed dial. There's a little hospital in Sheridan, which is 40 miles away. Any major medical assistance is 2 hours away. And now because of the business, we have a elaborate evacuation medical emergency plan in place. But gosh, if something happens, we better be prepared ourselves. You need to take care of yourself. Help's not going to arrive even with the air service there is today for at least an hour. If you get a helicopter to us in an hour, you're doing pretty good. And so we all have advanced wilderness first aid. My husband and my daughter are on the search and rescue. So you need to be involved as a community. You need to work together and you need to help each other out as neighbors because that's how we survive. Yeah, we can't count on government services for taking care of us. We have to take care of ourselves.
So a sense of community is really important.
Sense of community is extremely important. And in these small rural areas, you really can see when something happens that's unfortunate to one family, the whole community is affected. Everybody pitches in, everybody helps each other out, and they look out for one another. I mean, earlier this summer, 90-year-old lady up the road fell down the steps. They called us, and we took care of it. I mean, we have everything for instructing helicopters where to land. We have advanced medical kits here at the ranch, and so we kind of become the local community and every ranch does it. It's just not us by any means. When there's a fire or there's an emergency or the Forest Service needs something, the local sheriff's department needs something, we all work as a hub to help each other out.
So talk to me about the weather. How does the weather impact living in this part of the world? Kind of give me some fairly graphic ideals of what you've dealt with ever since you were a kid out here.
Oh my, it's not for the light of heart, that's for sure. That weather alone can change your day in a hurry. And in the winter, I live 3 miles from the main ranch. In the middle of the winter, I contact my daughter even today and say, I'm headed down because the wind will blow through and make drifts within an hour and you're stranded. You're up here. Every vehicle that we drive has emergency clothing, emergency gear in it. You plan ahead. You just don't jump in the vehicle and head to town. You think that trip could be interrupted at any moment.
Describe the weather, though. What are these weather events? What's happening on the ground? What time of year? What are you experiencing here?
The winters used to be worse than they are now. But when it is so cold and you're in the house and you walk out the door and you're talking and your first step out that door, the wind takes your breath away and you can't even speak. Or when you're walking down the boardwalk and everything creaks because it's so cold. And when it's time to feed, you never go out feeding alone without telling somebody. I mean, it gets 20, 30 below. If my husband Jake goes out to feed, I know when he's feeding, when he's expected back, because he could die walking from the tractor back to the house in that weather. And of course, the livestock gets an overabundance of food during that time frame, so they're well taken care of. But because of that, you're out more and you're putting yourself in the elements. So, yeah, you need good
Describe
clothing.
the elements, though. What are we talking about here? You said temperature, 20, 30 below zero. What are we talking? Time of year? What's happening? Where are we at elevation? Kind of give me some, paint that picture.
Yeah, we're at 6,000 feet. The snow can come in and overnight accumulate up to 3-4 feet. But what is the killer? It's not the deep snow. It's the wind. That wind will cut right through you. That wind will cut you to the core. And you've got to be careful. I mean, there's times that all you see is practically your eyeballs under all your clothing. I mean, you're covered totally. Doesn't happen often, but you better be prepared if it does happen.
So you took the family business over from your dad. Your dad had a pseudo outfitting business. He wasn't guiding hunters, but he was packing out game meat and let people come and stay. And they were staying here at the ranch, which was a way for him to augment his retirement. How did you get involved? Why did you get involved? And what happened?
I always loved to hunt. I don't remember not hunting. I remember as a little girl walking around, my dad gave me a single shot, 22. He had the bullet in his pocket. And I remember climbing all over these mountains. And he always got me involved. And as a young lady in the early 60s, that wasn't common, So my dad always seen that desire that I had. And just because I wasn't a boy, he didn't limit that. My mom, bless her heart, tried her best to not make me a tomboy, but Dad won over. So anyway, Dad needed an income, so he started the outfitting business as an unguided service, and pretty soon we started bringing in additional clients, and we needed to become outfitters so that we knew if we wanted the ranch to grow and the business to grow, we needed to get an outfitter license. That was in the mid 80s, and back then that license was given by outfitters. Today, the same number of licenses, big game general license, is still the same. So the more people that pass that test, the more competition for non-resident hunting license was. So that test was designed not to pass. We knew that. So we wanted my dad to take the test. And so I went in and I took it knowing full well I would fail it. And sure enough, I went in, I took the test and I failed it. I told my dad what was on the test. My dad went in, and they only gave the test back then every 6 months. And if you took it, you couldn't take it for another year. It was difficult. They didn't want you to pass. They told everybody they didn't pass. So my dad went in and took it, failed him. I couldn't believe it because my dad was my hero. My dad knew everything about hunting and the outdoors and then so we both told my husband. My husband Jake went in and took it, and they failed him. I'm a young mother now, 2 young kids, and I said that's enough. I'm gonna throw away all my Woman's Day, all my romance novels, and I grabbed every hunting and outdoor book I could get my hands on. I went to all the gun shops. I went to Gunsmith, and I was able to, I studied for 2 years. Well, I went in, I took the test, I walked out, and I went, yes, I aced that. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. This is Mcdonald. Sorry, but you did not pass that test. So I'm working in Helena at the time, and I'm telling my sad story to my boss, and I'm not a very happy person at this point. And his brother walks in, and his brother happens to be an attorney in Helena. And we go up to the Capitol. We pull the test. I passed it. They graded it wrong. So I have to go in and testify in front of the board of the group of outfitters. And at that time, they were probably around my age, but when I'm in my late 20s, I figured they were pretty much a group of older white men telling me they did not want a young lady in the business, and they did not want anybody, let alone a young woman in her 20s. So they started quizzing me. And there was one gentleman sitting there, and he started asking me questions. And I was scared at first, and I gave him my answer timidly. And pretty soon he's throwing another question at me, and I'm answering him. Then he's throwing another one, and now we're going back and forth. And he's getting my blood pressure up, and I know his blood pressure's up, and we're going back and forth. Finally, one of the other outfitters sits back and says, swore a little. She knows her stuff. Give her a license. That's how I became an outfitter. So I decided I better get involved. So I joined the Outfitters Association. Was just getting going. I was about 10 years old when I got my license, and I went to my first meeting. When it came time to vote, I raised my hand to vote. The gentleman sitting next to me took my hand, says, "Honey, where's your husband? Only outfitters can vote." I said, "Sir, I am an outfitter." And 18 years later, I was president of the Outfitters Association. I called on who raised their hand to vote. But it wasn't about me. It was about willpower. But if it wasn't for all the men in my life that gave me support, I wouldn't have done it.
So were you the first woman licensed as an outfitter in Montana?
I think I was the first, I can't say for 100%, but I think I was the first woman who received her license by taking the test. After I protested, they had to pass 7 other people who took the test the same time I did. And I was the first woman president of the Outfitter Association.
So let's get back to the ranch here.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of the family. You got 4 or 5 generations that are using or 4 generations on the ranch now, of course, but you've had here for 5 generations have been on the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys stay on the ranch? Why do you stay on the ranch? And what are you doing to make sure the next generation can stay on the ranch?
Well, we're pretty proud of the fact that out of 5 generations, 4 of them do live out on the ranch today. But it's hard work, and you can never take it for granted. And there's something magical about that land. There's something to be proud of when you pick up a handful of dirt and you say, "Dang, did my grandfather walk here?" Or "Did my grandmother do this?" Or I mean, there's just so much pride and admiration about being on that land that you want to protect it. You cannot live in the mountains and not want to preserve it, not believe in the heritage, and not be proud of what you have. It was a gift. What we have was a gift. And we all realize that. And that's the message we try to pass on to future generations. It's like, when you can't go to Google and buy family heritage. Family heritage is something that doesn't come by. If we sell the ranch, we've sold our family heritage. So we fight. I mean, there's been some battles. It's not always been easy. As families grow, they have children who have children, and they move to town, and they lose contact with the land. They lose the value of what the land is all about. So it's important to pass that message on. It's important to preserve that or be a conservationist. We all are involved in the local community. We're involved in legislation. I'm involved on a number of national boards.
Yeah.
Okay. I think in order to preserve and conserve and be a conservationist, and that's a big word. I mean, everybody has their own definition. Mine is to protect and enhance it, leave it a better place than what you found it. And you need to stay involved with protection. You need to stay involved with and think about future generations. And that's what our family has done. Not only myself and my husband, it's obvious my mom and dad have done that. My daughter and her husband, Freddie, I mean, they're involved locally. They're working hard to educate their children. And at some point, you do not own that land owns you. And you work hard, you're going to protect it. And so, uh, and you have a different feel. I think that family heritage makes you really want to protect it. As pieces of property are bought and sold, that can become lost. That pride in the land becomes lost. That land is a playground. You know, for many of us who live here in Montana for generations, that land is your way of life. But if you cannot make a living on that land, you're put in a tough situation. And that's what's happening with a lot of these ranchers as a generation out, is the bottom line is you have to be able to make a living. And the outfitting industry has allowed us to do that. The outfitting industry allowed us to keep that land in the family. And my daughter is now using it to bring in the military. And she is a therapist, and she does training with the military, and she has a nonprofit to help with the horses, and it helps the soldiers with PTSD.
Now, outfitting comes in many forms here. So give me a little idea about what the business operation is today. Kind of give me the elevator speech of what you guys, the services you provide, who comes and who does what and all that kind of stuff.
As a business has grown over the last 40 years, we've been in the industry about 40 years. Started out with unguided hunts, went into guided hunts, went into fly fishing. We now do hiking tours, UTV tours, high mountain country tours and hikes. You have to change as the world changes, as people's interests change. And I think the biggest thing we do as an outfitter, it's our job to educate. And it's our job to remember that each person who walks through our door has their own story. We're just the mediator between the land, the mountains, and that person. We're going to introduce them to the land, the mountains. And the mountains have a magical effect on people. We talked about it last night, sitting around a campfire, and that crackle, it brings out something powerful in people, and it makes people think, makes people realize the importance of the outdoors, the importance of protection. And that's our job as outfitters, besides helping them catch fish, besides giving them that opportunity to hunt for an elk or a deer. And our job is to be a teacher. Our job is to educate. But there's so much more to it than getting a wild animal. It's getting people out. If people only came here because they were successful, we probably would have only lasted 1 or 2 years. Success is not the animal. Success is getting out into the mountains, enjoying every sense in your body. You hear better, you smell better, you all of a sudden learn how to walk quietly, and every aspect of your whole body becomes alive. And you forget all those problems at work. You forget all the issues that are going on in the world. You're one with nature. And that's our job. That's what we do. Currently, right now, where we're at is we do mainly the hunting and fishing, guided hunts, unguided hunts, and fly fishing. We have fly fishing lodge. We have where we supply meals. We have 7 cabins. We have a conference room, full-size arena. And so we'll do horseback trips in the summer, along with the fly fishing, the hiking, the horses. During the winter, we'll help the unguided. We'll give them guidance, but not a guide. And then the guided guys we take out, and gals, for 5-day hunts for elk, deer, and antelope.
And so the next question is maybe also explain a little something about the dude aspect of it. I assume that you have some people come up just to ride horses, right?
Yeah, we get a lot of people that come up just to horseback ride, seeing the mountains on the back of a horse, there's nothing quite like it. We also offer an equine facilitated wellness program where people spend alone time with the horse. People actually get in the round pen with the horse. People, really can connect. And so we'll even help the local ranchers move their cattle. And so we try to, be it horses, be it the hiking, be it the fishing we offer during the summer, it's really getting people out in nature and getting them to enjoy the outdoors. So what do you see as, let's talk about a couple subject matters here. Let's talk about predators, large predators on the landscape. You've been here your whole life, but coming out here now, you're full-time in this operation that involves wildlife. What's going on with grizzly bears and wolves in this country? And give me your perspective on it and kind of what you think, where it's been, where it's going, maybe what the future holds and how that impacts the people and the wildlife. Right. The grizzly bears and wolves definitely affects, if they're managed, they're part of the landscape. The population is not in balance. But explain to me, when we say it's not in balance, what does that mean? Okay. When, strangely enough, the more man interferes, sometimes the more nature becomes out of balance. And if there's a higher wolf population, and they have no fear of being hunted, and they're the top of the food chain, they can eat and kill as much as they want without even eating it. It has an effect on the ranching community. It has an effect on the hunting community. It has an effect on the wildlife. It has, I've seen the elk change. I've seen the elk not have as high a calf crop population, even if the wolves don't harvest or kill the elk. Those elk are continually scared. Those elk are continually on the lookout. And it does. It affects how we hunt them now. We do have to hunt differently than I hunted. We've always had wolves. We've always had grizzly bears, but they were in check. And now the population they're welcome on the landscape, but they're welcome in a managed number. So did you say there's too many of the predators on the landscape now? There's too many predators on the landscape right now. It's hard to bring it back in balance. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of cooperation, and people have to start working together so that we can keep them on the landscape, but we can keep everything else on the landscape as well. Okay. Just going to hit some other various topics. Fire. What kind of impact does fire have to this country? And I'm not talking about the management type of fires, but wildfire. We're surrounded by forests, and it's dry in the summertime. So for you, just personally, what does fire mean to this ranch and your family? Wildfire. Wildfire can be extremely scary. Wildfire can change your life overnight. You see smoke anywhere, you're on alert. I mean, the environment's so dry right now. There's a lot of fuel because there was no management of fires in the past. There's not the harvest of trees there used to be. So there's a lot of fuel. And so a small fire can become a large, fast and quick fire. And with the winds that come through this valley, it's an extremely scary. It's something that can be life-changing in a hurry. Fire could lead to death. I mean, that's why we're all afraid, If I have clients and hunters up in the mountains and I see smoke coming from an area, it's it's a high alert. You make sure you contact them and let them know. Move out. People don't realize how quick and how dangerous a fire can move.
Trophy ranches. Your dad talked about you've had people buy it. Luckily, they haven't developed the land, but he said it has had in his lifetime, he thinks an adverse impact because they're not using the land like historically been used.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obviously affecting wildlife. What's your thoughts on trophy ranches here in this part of Montana?
Trophy ranches are popping up all over. It's just people have the money to buy out of ranches that have been in generations. The reason for the ownership of the ranch changes. Lots of times they'll come from areas that we've been fortunate in our area, but where they don't understand the community involvement. They don't understand what makes that value of the land work. It's not about just making it mine, because pretty soon that ranch is not going to hold that nutritional value. It's not going to help your local community. We've been extremely fortunate in our area that the ranches that have sold to people that can afford huge ranches have asked questions to the local community. They have asked, how can we help? I mean, every ranch we had lease from the families that sold, those new owners still let us fish their property, still let us use their property. They understand the value of community. And if people could come and buy the ranches and understand the lifestyle or the value of community, I think it would solve a lot of problems.
Right. Commercialization of wildlife. You're an outfitter.
Mm-hmm.
You generate revenue through the wildlife. Should ranch owners receive or see any benefit financially or economically from wildlife? And if so, why? And if no, why?
Commercialization of wildlife is a term I don't like, because people only see the 5 weeks of hunting season. People don't see the year-long work that goes into the ranching community, to where you're not only feeding your livestock, which is that's your bottom line. I mean, you need to protect and keep your livestock in order to keep your ranch, in order to keep your family on the land. And that wildlife comes in, and you have 100 head of elk that come in, and all of a sudden you're buying more hay. And that might be in January, February, March. Those elk are on that land. And during hunting season, some of those ranches don't have elk. Some of them do. And they need to get an income. They need to work with, I don't like to see ranches totally closed off. I like to see ranches managing hunting and working not only for the hunting community, but helping the local community and youth with hunting as well. So I think it can work, and it needs to work, but don't make it all about yourself and your friends. Sure. We lease ranches, but any child that, if I can, I'll get them on there, and those children pay nothing. We'll take them hunting. And that's how we're going to preserve the sport of hunting, is introduce it to youth.
A lot of resident hunters will talk about, that 6-point bull behind that gated fence on that private ranch, that private property is a public asset. And they say, well, why should I be able to hunt that? Of course, we have private property rights here in Montana. But what do you say to these hunters that, I'm sure you've seen it, this sense of entitlement, that they think they should have access. Now we're talking about corner hopping on boundaries. They're doing, they're very much dead set against landowners, seeing these benefits of what they consider to be their asset, right?
Right.
So what do you say to the entitled hunters? You see entitled hunters, and what do you say to these guys that seem to think that, that come hell or high water, damn it, they're going to hunt wherever they want to?
It's a tough question, Tom. That's a tough one. You know, entitled hunters, it's tough because as hard as sometimes as much as, if we could turn the clock back to where somebody would knock on your door, or they leave the gates how they found them, or you didn't find a dead cow in your field because somebody shot it. I understand both sides of this story. The rancher has to protect his property, and they have the property right to do that. And it's frustrating for a hunter. It's frustrating, when you do see these big herds of elk. I mean, and there's ranches right here in our valley that I don't hunt, and I'll see 100 to 200 head of elk go through, or they'll have big bulls on it. But, they're taking care of that wildlife too. And that wildlife does not just stay in that fence. That wildlife is healthy because of the ranching community as well. So it gives them a lot of winter range, and those wildlife go back and forth between private and public. And I think if there was a little more respect for both parties, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in today, and people, some hunters, I won't say all, but there's a majority of hunters that don't hunt like we used to. I mean, you used to get out and exercise and shoot, and we had basic rifles and basic scopes. Now, instead of exercising and working and getting to the shooting range, you buy a more powerful rifle, you buy a larger scope, and the equipment today is remarkable. I mean, I have some great equipment. I'm not going to, not have that great equipment either, but people get this amazing equipment, but they don't put the time in. And so they may get into an area that is near a fence line to harvest an animal. They shoot at the bull on a legal area. It goes into private property, and that's where it dies. Now it causes a problem. So some of these corner crossings and some of those things that are happening now, yes, it may be legal, but does it work if you harvest something that goes into somebody's private property? If you're hunting the line, you're just going to get yourself in trouble. Yeah. So that's something that people don't think about.
So if you're going to talk to the urbanized population of America, talking to people in this probably New York or Chicago or LA or Dallas, even for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell them about your role on the land as a landowner, as a steward of the land? What do you do and why is it important? And what should they understand about what you do and why you're here?
I don't look at the land as mine. I look at the land as something we love to share. Because lots of times people who come out and they think what the land is, but when their feet is on the ground and they're in the hills and they feel what can happen, it changes their perspective. And that's our job. I mean, to share and introduce. As outfitters, we can get people into the backcountry that there's no way they'd be able to do it themselves. Or we can help keep people safe by taking them. People are becoming further and further removed from the land. And it's our job to reintroduce them back to the land. And when that happens, it's almost magical. You get that wow moment. They always had it in them. They just didn't have that opportunity to experience it. So even if it's your little piece of your backyard, it's important for all of us to take care of that land, no matter what the size of it is.
Right. So what do you think the future holds for these landowners in places like this? Whether they're ranch and the outfitting and utilizing the resource out here economically. What do you think the future holds? Where we're going to be in 10, 20, 50, 100 years?
Well, I try to be...
And if you could paraphrase the question.
Okay. What does the future hold? What's it going to be like in 15, 20 years from now? Gosh, who knows? Things can change in a hurry. We seen that a couple of years ago. But I think people really care about the land. People care about wildlife. People want to preserve it. People want to do the right thing. They want to be conservationist. I think we're starting to understand the importance of clean water, clean air. We're starting to understand that there needs to be a balance within that wildlife. I mean, we share the landscape with a number of different types of animals. We need them all, big, small, down to the last little tiny insect. And if we can start to educate more, I think we can improve the land. I have nothing against people that come here and buy up a big ranch. All we need to do is protect it and protect that land. And then we're saving it for future generations. The one thing that's not being made anymore is land. It's the only thing we have left.
So there are people, though, along the lines of what you're talking about, that say nature should be left alone and should handle all this, that humans don't need to be managing the land. What do you say to people that say that nature should be free and we shouldn't be managing the land?
Well, then you shouldn't put your house in the middle. If nature should be left alone, if nature should not be managed by man, then we shouldn't be building in migration areas. We shouldn't be building solar farms in areas where the mule deer can't get through. We are, and we started hundreds of years ago, building and being in these areas because we love nature. And now we have to help protect them and we have to manage them. An overpopulation of something will cause a disease. And I seen the blue tongue go through as a young woman and hiking next to the water where there's dead deer because they fevered up and they had to get down to the river. I never want to see that again. And we can control that by management. Management of rangeland is so important. The cattle go through and it's like mowing your lawn. If you don't let the cattle on the national forest, the elk don't have anywhere for their winter range. Those cattle, like they eat off all those weeds. The grass comes up, the cattle move up, and that grass has all summer to grow. And that's the winter range for wildlife. So I think in our area, we have such a large number of elk because the cattle industry and the wildlife industry work well together. And that's what gives us a very positive, very large impact on the wildlife in this area.
I got 2 minutes left on the card. Is there anything you want to add?
I'm excited for the future. I think there's a lot of positive. I watch my grandkids love the outdoors, and we'll go to local school and help the kids. And there's a positive future in the outdoor industry.
Thanks for listening. You can find this podcast wherever great podcasts live, including on the Shepherds of Wildlife Society website at shepherdsofwildlife.org. Please tell a friend, and let's save wildlife together.